Hello, active and attractive ladies. How are you feeling today? Welcome to another Facebook Live here inside of the active and attractive community. I want to invite you guys to come in. We've got a big day today, and today is a workshop. So if today you have time to sit with yourself and walk through the process of discovering your story, getting clear on the events that you've experienced in your life, those milestone moments that matter, the moments in time that you had to overcome where you were impacted by some event, some person, some experience that allowed you to find another level of yourself. Those are the moments that are important for you as a leader to be aware of, but also be able to share and communicate with others. So we have a lot to talk about today. If you are catching me live, let me know that you're here. And if you are watching the replay, as always, hashtag active and attractive so that I could see that you caught this video. So ladies, here we are. Walking. Let me grab this hair really quick because I can see it. And we are going to do this video in a way that we've done before. If you've done a workshop with me, if you've done a masterclass with me, you know that I love to ask questions, and the questions are designed to probe inside of your mind to access the information that you may or may not be fully aware of. Now, the reason this matters in leadership is that when we know ourselves, we know where we've been, we know what we've touched, we know what we stand for, we are able to communicate that. And part of the key to world building is knowing who you are at such a level that you create impact everywhere you go. Now, a lot of times what happens is we know that storytelling is important. You might be a woman who talks very freely, you share yourself freely, and you're like, Sammy, there's no walls with me. You can ask me anything and I'll be able to communicate that. And to that I say, hats off to you, because if you feel comfortable sharing yourself, then the key is unlocked for you in that area. However, how you share your story, how you communicate your message helps land the value of what you're saying into people's minds. And the influence that we want to create is that when you share a story, an important key moment in your life with other people, we want that story to be a method of unlocking people and the depths and the fears and the hangups that they have within themselves. When you know you, when you share you, and you're intentional in how you share you, this is going to grant you access to having a much greater effect on the people that hear your stories. And in the art of in the art of storytelling, you sharing you is going to allow other people to sit in the seat of a listener and go for a ride that you take them on. And so what we covered last week is the framework, the basic framework of storytelling that we're going to use today. But in order to use the framework of storytelling, we need to know what stories you have. Part of my story is that back when I was in junior high, I became very aware of the difference between me and other people talking in a group. I was always a shy kid. I grew up very shy. My mom had a very big personality. My dad had a very big personality. And I swear I came out of the womb just with a very closed mouth. I was just not naturally open. But when I knew you, when I felt safe with you, that's when I would open up. I'd blossom like a flower. I would chat and I would share what I was thinking. I would share what I was doing. I would share what happened yesterday. I would just open my mouth and feel very connected and sharing who I was. And what happened then was in junior high, this is where I became a lot more aware of social dynamics. I was a lot more aware of, if I say something, this may push a group of people away from me. If I say something, this may mean that the guy that I like will either stay close or he'll disappear. I remember realizing that how I showed up would dictate how people saw me and how they treated me. And so it caused me to end up going internal more than I already was. And I found it very difficult to talk about myself. Now, when I was engaging with people, what I discovered by accident was that in order to engage with people, for people to like me, for people to want to keep me around, for people to want to stay my friend, I realized that when I asked questions about them, that was the secret to people feeling heard, seen, and understood. I would always get feedback like, Sammy, you're just my best friend. And I was like, I just met you today. I would get feedback I would have people tell me, Sammy, you are just such a trustworthy person. I can share everything. I can share my secrets with you and you don't tell anybody. I had people say that, they knew that they could talk to me and I brought an awareness to them about themselves that they never knew was there. And I'm like, we're kids. This feels like a lot of responsibility, but hey, you love me. You want to be my friend. And that's really what that was my goal back when I was a child. So back then I started to develop this pattern of listening over talking. And so I took this very far in my life as a kid. I took this into high school and into college, and just a very good listener, had a lot of friends, a lot of people that I loved, a lot of experiences that I shared with all of these people. But I realized it wasn't until about 3 to 4 years ago where I had a friend call me out and she was like, I don't feel like I know you. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know me? We're on the phone talking and I was like, what do you mean you don't know me? We talk every single week. How do you not know me? And she's like, I just don't feel like you share with me the problems that you're going through. I was like, well, I'm an open book. I share my pains and I share my problems and I share what happened to me this week. And she was like, you do, but you share it after you've already overcome it. And so it feels like there's no pain. It feels like there's no problem. You just share with me your situation, very matter of fact. And I was like, well, yeah, because I figured it out. I figured out the problem. She's like, that's the problem. And I remember when she told me this really hurt me because I could feel her pain. I could feel and sense her discomfort. She specifically said, hey, look, I love our friendship. I wouldn't change it. If this is all we got, I would never change anything for the world. But I just have to let you know, I don't hear your pain. I was like, do you want me to just talk about all my problems? She's like, no, I just want to feel it with you. And when she said that, it clicked. Because as a listener, what I got good at was listening to the roller coaster of people's life experience. I felt like I was living their life with them. When my friend was going through a divorce, I was going through a divorce. When my friend was struggling with food and eating, I was struggling with food and eating. Whenever she was about to get a job promotion, I was about to get a job promotion. I was so enthralled with my friends and their experiences, and I walked with them every single step of the way. But what they were good at was sharing their experience. What I didn't realize is that I was good at sharing the end, the happy ending, when things were already finished. And so what this brought up to me was a realization that it's important to share all parts. Because it took me a while, but what my friend was saying was that she couldn't fully feel connected with me unless she saw the whole thing. So this is something that I think is important in leadership, is for us to be able to share the entire picture. Not just us on the other side after we've already broken our leg and healed and now we're able to walk again. Not just the part where it's all pain and doom and gloom and it's just the stresses and the pains and the frustrations. And not the middle where we sound like we know it all and we can share all of the things that work and all the things that fix us and the things that we encounter that work, right? We want to be able to share the problem, the solution, and then the benefits on the other side. If you're in a business and you do marketing, if you're trying to create a story for your clients in order for them to believe in themselves, if you are marketing and selling and you're convincing someone that your product can bring them to a better place, if you are a parent and you're trying to share with your teenager that you've been there and you've done that and you do really know something, if you're trying to connect with a friend and let them know that you had a hard week, if you're trying to share a story, if you're trying to connect with people and influence them, have an impact through connection, It's important to become a really good storyteller. And so this is something that I had to practice because I felt like I was an open book, and I was an open book, but what I was not powerful in is the ability to share what I've experienced in my past. If you watched last week's training, what we talked about was the ESH model. This is the framework for storytelling that we use here. And there's many frameworks that you could use, but the premise is that when you share your experience through your eyes from a first person view, you share what you've seen and where you've been and what you were doing in the moment and how old you were and what time of day it was, and you really paint the picture. This allows people to come into the moment with you. This is where they get to put their senses into the scene, where they get to see what you see and feel what you feel and smell what you smell and taste what you taste. When you are a great person at describing the experience, just like a movie, it's setting the scene. It's letting people leave their lives and step into yours. And when you step into another person's story, this is where you get rid of what's wrong with you as a listener. This is where you release any problems that you're currently facing. This is why we run to movies and books and music, because they suspend our reality for a moment. And the gift of storytelling or sharing art in this way as a leader is that we get to suspend our audience's realities for a minute. A lot of people that we're trying to help are thriving or writhing around in pain. They're stressed, they're overwhelmed, they're frustrated, their kids are loud, their spouse isn't listening, they don't feel connected, they feel and can only think the thoughts that are just berating them in their minds. But when you're a storyteller and you begin to share your experience, people are able to leave their reality, even if it's just for a minute. When you get good at sharing and setting the scene, sharing the experience, sharing the moment that you were in, the first part of storytelling allows people to come into the moment with you. When you have a person's attention like this is where they get to hear the solution that you have. And ESH, E stands for experience. S, on the other hand, stands for strength. What was the strength that you encountered while you were experiencing the problems? Was it a person who said something wise to you? Was it a situation that you found yourself in that worked? Was it a stranger that reached out their hand to pick you up and help you? Was it a program that you found online? What was the thing that strengthened you, that you encountered by accident or with intention, that helped you increase or improve your experience? When you can clearly articulate what strengthened you, as the person who walked through it, you get to have a moment where you remember what it was that you did, what it was that supported you, what brought life to you when you couldn't see which way is up. Knowing what is the strength is the answer that we as leaders are trying to pass back to other people to help them on their journey. Identifying the strength, being able to speak positively about the strength, speaking life into the strength is what helps sell people into choosing that for themselves. And as a leader, our whole goal is to create impact. It's to encourage people to try something that they originally wouldn't try otherwise. Identifying, describing, and painting the picture of this strength is a key skill in the scheme of storytelling. Now, painting the picture, getting people on the same page is experience. Strength is identifying what worked, what was the solution, what helped, what saved you. And then the H stands for hope. The other side of making that decision, the other side of going out and being brave and slaying the dragon, the other side of going up to your crush and actually telling them that you like them, the other side of finally going and working out. What is the other side? What is there to be hopeful of if the listener chooses to do it too? Hope is what we're all looking for. Hope is why people spend money on things. Hope is why people look up to other people who seemingly have what it is that they want. As a storyteller and as a leader, if you can accurately and visually display hope, It gives people a feeling of a calling. And callings are what we chase. So I would love to hear from you. Where do you feel like you're at in the game of storytelling? Do you feel like you're really solid in storytelling? Like I shared, I thought I was a good storyteller. I thought I was sharing myself, but that's what I was doing. I was just sharing parts of myself. I didn't realize there were 3 pieces to the story. When I realized that my strength was in sharing the S and the H, I could share what works. I could share the wisdom. I could share about the program. I could share about the thing that, oh my God, you got to try this. I could share that strength. And I could also share the hope. Now that this happened to me, now I'm able to go and I'm able to walk faster. I'm able to run further. I'm able to love deeper. I'm able to sleep better. I'm able to make more money. I'm able to show up online better. I'm able to do all these things. This is what I would share with my friends. But what my friend was asking for was more about the E, the experience. She was thinking to herself, does Sammy ever hurt? Does Sammy ever have pain? Does Sammy ever struggle? Because no offense to you, Sammy, but you're making me kind of feel bad. Everything is just sunflowers and rainbows for you. And I was like, no, I was struggling the entire time. She was like, but you don't share that. And I was like, I didn't even know you wanted to hear that. Rather than thinking of it as me needing to share the problem, it was more me needing to share and depict the experience. That was my weakness. And so now I had fun finding the details of the experience. What was I doing before the strength entered my life? What was I doing right before my life changed? How was I feeling? What was I thinking? What was just festering in me? What was hurting me? What was creating the problem? And in finding that, it brought things up for me. It made me realize, oh my God, I have come so far. I didn't even register the pain because I'm so forward focused. My mind is always looking to the future that I didn't even give myself credit for what I've overcome. No wonder I don't feel confident in knowing that no matter what I experience, I can always overcome it. You knowing your story does more for you than it does for the listener. The listener is just a bonus. Helping other people is just the bonus. You knowing your story is you tapped into your juice. It's you knowing the path you've walked. It's knowing the pains you've seen and being okay at looking at it. A lot of us don't want to remember what hurt us. A lot of us don't want to remember the times before. My encouragement to you is to explore what those things are, not to settle in them, not to identify as them, but to acknowledge them and then claim your power over it. When you're able to claim your power over your past, you're able to more appreciate your present. When you feel sturdy in your present, this is the absolute point of health in leadership. When you know who you are, where you've been, what you've seen, and why you stand for what you stand for, this is where you become unshakable. When I was talking to my friend and she was like, Sammy, I just don't feel like I know a lot about you. Hurt. And so I was like, no, I've got things. I have stories and things. She was like, okay, well, let's talk about them. And I was like, I had such a hard time coming back into my mind to think about the things I've gone through. From the time I was in junior high, figuring out social dynamics, I didn't train that part of my brain that's used to going in and recalling out events to then project them through words. I didn't have that. It was a weak muscle in my mind. Tell me if you relate to that. It was a weak muscle in my mind. This is where, when you look at the ESH, where do you feel the weakest? Some of you are so good at talking about where you've been, what you saw. You can tell me down to the detail what hurt you, who hurt you, how it felt, where you were, what time of day. Some of you guys are good at dates, what day it was, what year it was, what month it was, how the weather was. You can fully paint the picture. But you might not feel very good about speaking about the other side when things started to work. When things got hopeful, when things got better for you. Can you bring that story out all the way to the end? A lot of people I love don't have the gift of actually realizing they've made it through that story arc. And their minds, because they're so used to highlighting the experience, the E, they haven't been able to give themselves the credit that that story is actually a story in the past. It's not something that's still happening to them right now. It's something that's in the past. Something changed. The strength came in. The strength strengthened them. They are better. They are bigger. They are bolder. They are louder. They're stronger as a result. And therefore, there is hope for them and for the people that hear their story. But because their train of thought is focused on the experience, the past, they don't feel hope in their body, and it limits them as a leader. It limits their confidence. It limits their ability to believe. It limits their ability to reach for bigger and better things. It limits them. This is the problem with not having the full model, the E, the S, and the H. You might realize that talking about the things that work, you don't bother sharing what happened before, and you don't talk about the projections of what this could mean for you in the future. You might be the type of person that says, I know what works. This quote is true. This program works. Doing your money like this works. This is what I've realized. This is what I found. This is what. And it's very linear. It almost feels like someone who is a know-it-all. It's you sharing the truth, the things that are smart, the things that are good, but you don't put it in the context of a story. So it just sounds like you're telling facts. It's like you're telling people what to do. Maybe you've gotten this feedback before. And also, you find it hard to convince people to take action and do the same thing as you because you haven't yet learned how to project the hope. The reason it's worth it. The reason they should try it out. You might find that you're telling your kids over and over again, do this, clean your room this way, do your homework by this time. Make sure you don't go on a date with these type of people. You're trying to tell the strength, the power, the truth, the way, the light, right? You're trying to tell them, and you didn't put it into context. You didn't tell them that you got this solution because you yourself did not have it all together. You weren't strong in this area. You're also not telling them the hope, the area where they can thrive, what they could grow into if maybe they choose to step up. Everyone has an area of weakness, and this is how you know you're a good storyteller. The experience is when people lean in and they're like, oh, you did? Really? Wait, what? You? I wouldn't have guessed. Wow, you've been through that? I've been through that. I didn't know someone like you could be through that, have gone through that. When you have people's attention like this, that's how you know you've mastered the experience. You might be really good at letting people know, and they're hyped with you, but then you fall flat on transitioning them into action. It's great to captivate people. The experience is where we catch people. It's where they connect with us. They feel relatability. When we project onto the screen this movie of what you were walking through, they get to take the moment to find where they are in the story. The E, the experience, is where people connect with you. And you might be the person where everyone says, oh my gosh, you're so inspirational. Oh my gosh, I love that you said that. Oh my gosh, me too. Or that reminds me of when I did something like that. But as a leader, our intention is to get people to move. We want people to take action and lead themselves into another level. So especially if you're a business owner and you notice people are engaging with your content, they know who you are, they love what your story is, but they're not taking action themselves. A lot of times this comes from not having been able to walk them through the full storytelling framework. When you are confident in knowing what works, what solution, what to do, how to do it, how it's going to feel, how it should be done, and you're sharing these facts with people, you're speaking with wisdom, you're speaking with truth, you're speaking with, and people are like, they hear it and they know it's for them. They go away and they say, wow, I'm going to have to go and think about that. Oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. This is the phase where if you're only speaking in strengths, it puts people in their minds. If you're running a business or you're a leader, you're going to have a lot of people that say, wow, you're so smart. That makes a lot of sense. I probably should try that. But should is not good enough for a leader. We want people to move. They should want to do something. They should do it. And so a lot of people as leaders will get stuck. A lot of entrepreneurs will get stuck and having their clients, sorry, the dryer just went off. They have their clients get excited. They have their clients relate to them. They have their clients hear the wisdom, and then there's still no action. There's no stories of, hey, you shared this story and I went off and did it for myself. There's no people signing up like they would hope for their programs and for their offers. If you're trying to sell your kids, you see your kids, their gears are turning, but nothing's happening. They're not doing it. It's because one of the pieces are missing and your strength is in the strength section. As leaders, we want to give context and give solution. But the part that seals the deal is in the hope. What does the other side really look like? What does it really look like? Do you know what it really looks like? When you follow this message, what happens in my life? How is it going to change? How did it change for you? When you're really good at hope, what people are going to say is, I want that for myself. I want that for me. I believe in that. That's so incredible. That sounds so good. That causes a craving or a hunger in my belly. I want to have that for myself. I wish, I hope, I wish, I hope. As a storyteller, when you can bring hope to the equation, you're going to see that your clients and your people are very hungry. But if you don't have the other two, you're going to hear people saying, wow, I wish I had what you had. That sounds so great. I wish I could do what you did. Combine all three of these pieces together, my friend. Combine them all together. When you can have your clientele or the people that you love the most in your life say, oh my God, you did? I didn't know you started down there. And you implemented what? That makes sense. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And then it led you to that. That's what all of those sequences got you the money. All of those sequences is how you found your spouse. All of those sequences is how you have the energy you do. That's how you did it. Giving people each step of the way is what allows their brain to rationalize. And it allows their hearts to feel. To feel inside of themselves, is this really worth going for? When you combine your audience's minds and their hearts together, and there's no conflict here, you've got people who move. So, I want you to know a story that matters. What story in your life can you start to tell today that's going to move people in a way that you've never seen before? Now, I want to preface this by saying that storytelling and being artistic in storytelling takes time. It takes time. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not something that for most of us comes naturally. And you might be really good at telling people the first half, but then you lose them by the S, right? You might be able to get them all the way through the E and the S, and then at the H, you lose them. They're gone. What we want is to practice, but you need to know the framework first. You need to know why each step is important, and then find one story in your life that resonates with you to practice telling over and over and over and over and over again. The way you know you've got this story down packed is when people are like, oh my God, she's about to tell us, I love this story. Listen to this one. When people say, listen to this one, they know what the scene is, they know what the set is, they know what the setup is, and they also know that the strength, the thing that works, is so amazing. And the reason it's so important to listen to is because what it brings the hero on the other side is so spectacular that people would love to hear your story again and again and again. When you get good at telling your story over and over again, you have fallen in love with something, one thing that's happened to you. It's something to rest your identity in. It's the motor between who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going. It's the reason why. But when other people hear your story, it becomes a force. It becomes another level for them to aspire to. It becomes a motor for them. So I'm going to ask you some questions, because for me, when my friend was asking me, I just don't feel like I know you, I did not know how to find stories in my mind. All of my stories felt flat. I didn't feel like I had a traumatic story like everyone else. I felt like my life was pretty decent and kind of flat. I felt like there wasn't a lot to share, and I just felt like that was boring. Now imagine me trying to be in my power, lead a company that's meant to support thousands of women, and my view of myself is that I'm kind of flat. I don't have a great story. I haven't seen that much. And yeah, I did all of that, but that's not as big as someone else's story. The amount of rejection, the amount of low self-esteem, the amount of low self-worth in that mindset is enough to keep my business small. And so guess what? My business stayed small. I didn't show up because I didn't think my story was worth it. I didn't share things with people unless it required for me to share a smart answer or to encourage them and be hopeful. I was able to take people very far with just those two, but things didn't pop until I started sharing my story. I had to take time to actually go through my mind and rework the experiences that is my life into valuable stories that are actually worth telling. I guarantee if you think your life feels flat, then it probably feels flat, and it still feels flat. Your story right now still feels flat. But friend, I am telling you, your life is so freaking amazing. And I know you've seen things, and you're working on things right now, and you've done things, and you've gone places, and your parents have experienced things. They've taken you on experiences, and your friends, and your love life, and your career. You have done things. And these are things that you have conquered. These are things that you've overcome. And so we've got to look at your story like it matters, because it does. Whether you feel it or not, your story is what got you here. It's how you're here right now listening to this video. It's how you're here inside of this group. It's how you've assembled your life in the way that it is. And even if you have more story to go and you're not satisfied with your life right now, that's more story that you get to build out for yourself. So we're going to go back and I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to ask you a set of questions, and this is the workshop part of today. I'm going to ask you a set of questions because I want you to really sit and let's figure out a story. Let's figure out one story. Now, keep in mind, you've got thousands of stories, but this framework will help you draw out one story. And I want you to sit with it and craft it. And when you start telling it with the ESH framework, you're going to begin to see, all right, so I'm a little weak in the middle. But I can really paint the picture in the beginning, or I'm very strong at the end, but no one's getting to the end because I'm weak at the beginning, right? This is going to be something that you will have to practice over and over and over and over again. But I want you to feel comfortable being repetitious. Sometimes we don't want to hear ourselves talk, but when you think your story is valuable, you're going to want to share it everywhere you go, because watching people change as a result of your story becomes infectious. And you begin to realize that, wow, just this one little story, I've got 1,000. This one little story changes people's minds. It's your work in action. And everywhere you go, you're valuable. So we want you to feel comfortable sharing your story. So here we go. I'm going to ask you, let's see, how many questions? We have 6 questions. And I want you to sit with yourself and really think through this. And the beginning is going to be hard, but when you can answer the first question, the rest should flow. So we're going to take the longest on the first question. If you're here live, I would love for you to be interactive. Please don't be shy. If you want to just write even a piece of the story that comes to your mind, I would love to see what story comes to you. And I'd love to hear it. Sharing your story is supposed to feel vulnerable, especially if you yourself haven't visited the story in a while. But the whole point that we've talked about leading up to this live today, all of the last 8 months, has been us talking about you feeling confident and comfortable in sharing your message. When you can share your message and you can do it in any and every room that you step into, this is where you create impact everywhere you go. So sharing your story everywhere you go requires the practice of feeling comfortable with sharing your story. And so we're going to start to pull stories out. I'm thinking of Harry Potter, and they do the little wand and he pulls out a memory. And that's how I imagine it. So I want you to think about you're pulling out one memory, and we're going to just draw up the picture, and your homework is going to be to expand this story and then share it here with us inside of the group. Okay? All right. So the first question is, all right, let me rephrase. The first thing we're going to do here is uncover your story and give hope to the world around you. And we're going to uncover various strengths that you have within and identify the things you've embodied. So if you don't know the language that I just shared there, I'd love for you to go back and watch the videos. This is all we've been building up to this moment here. So we're at the phase of impact. The goal is to create impact, but I want you to put everybody else outside of your mind. We are just exploring you. It's you and me, and we're just exploring you. All right. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, what would you say you're confident right now at this season in your life? What do you feel like you're confident in your ability to be able to do? What's something you're able to do right now that if you let yourself, you can be like, oh, I'm confident in that. I'm totally confident in that. Yeah, I could totally do that. I want you to share what that is. And I'm going to go to, I haven't seen any comments. So if you guys are quiet, I'm going to be like, no, but if you guys have already commented, you have. Hello. Kim is here. Hi. I haven't been able to see anything on my phone. I see Brandy was here. And yes, Kim, it can be anything at all. Oh, I love that you're here. I'm so happy. Let me put this. Anything in your life. It could be in business. It could be in health. It could be you're like, I'm a good sleeper. You could be like, I'm a great driver. I'm very courteous. I am a clean freak. I can really speak and sell someone. I know how to sew and stitch. I know how to, love people like crazy. What's something you're really confident about doing We're looking at any aspect to your world. Oh, freaking Kim. I'm seeing some of the things you're saying now. One of my S's currently is this community. I love you so much. I love you so much. ES plus H equals action. That's what we're trying to bring people to. All right. So Kim, you said, I am able to lean on God for rest and peace. So I want to emphasize how powerful this is, because most people, one, cannot lean on anybody at all. So that's a strength. But two, you do it for rest and peace. The world is desperate for rest and peace. Desperate to find rest and peace within themselves. They don't have it in their home. They don't have it in their body. They don't have it in their life. Everything feels chaotic. You've got a gift here. And the fact that you feel confident about it, that's the kind of ownership. That's the level of leadership we're looking for. So for those of you guys who are sharing, what we want is for you to know what you feel confident in. Now, there might be a whole list of things that you can be more confident in, but we want one thing that you're like, no, Sammy, this is that thing. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud that I'm able to say this. That's what we want, because if you can share story around what you're confident in, what you are confident in is the gift you're meant to be spreading to the earth. So, I was desperate for rest and peace. Perfect. So that's where you were before. So number 2 is, where do you think you learned this skill from? Where did it come from? Did you always have it? Was it something that you found at a certain phase in your life? Did you have it and then you lost it and then you have it now again? Where do you think you learned this level of rest and peace from? Leaning on God for rest and peace. Where did you learn that from? Where did you learn it from? Where did it come from? If you've always had it, that's a really good, important thing to know, because our goal as leaders is to pass down what we're gifted with, what we're strong in, what we've embodied. We don't want to share things that we're still learning. We don't want to share things that we say people need to do, but we're not doing it ourselves. We only want to share the things that we're confident in. And this is how we avoid imposter syndrome. This is how we avoid the effects of starting and stopping. This is how we avoid all of that. When you know what you know, and you're proud of what you know, and you own what you know, this is where no one can take this away from you. This is your weapon. This is your sword and shield. This is what you are providing to the earth, and this is what you're giving. So where did you learn this from? Or where do you think that you've learned it from? And if you were gifted in it, say that so you know where it came from. We need to know your storyline. Now, the next thing is I want you to give, the third question is, give the detailed example of the moment you remember learning this. Now, the key to storytelling, this was my most difficult piece, the key to storytelling was that in order to tell a good story, to describe a good experience, you don't want to speak in generalities. You don't want to speak in concept. You want to speak in settings, time and place. Time and place. Woohoo! Settings. We want to speak in time and place. So the reason I asked this question is I want you to give the detailed example of the moment you can remember. The moment you can remember learning this, the best you got. Were you 5 and you were in a specific home that you lived in at that age that you haven't lived in since then? Were you with your sibling? Were you outside? What age were you? What year was it? What time of day was it? What pictures were around you? We need a moment, because in storytelling, when you start conceptually, and this was my problem and I still am working on this, when you start with a concept, a general idea, yeah, I remember whenever I was, I remember when I learned, it's like, take me back to the moment. Where were you? How old were you? How many people lived in your home? Did you have a dog? Was your family wealthy or were they not? What was around you? Did you have toys? What were you wishing for? What were you hoping for? What was that moment? And can you describe in detail the moment you remember learning this? Tina, hello. Communicating effectively with company leadership. That, like, what a skill. Don't get me started. To communicate. How many people do you wish communicated better? And then effectively. So that means you know how to produce outcome through your language. Powerful. With company leadership. Not just with people, not with women, with companies in leadership. Check, 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 check. Skills. Girl, you got skills. You learned this from auditing companies. So, Tina, because I read yours first, I'm going to ask you, I want to ask you, take me to a moment in time. I know the whole moment probably was decades, or it could have been years of you learning auditing, but what's the first memory where you felt you were learning this? Take us to the moment. Were you at a desk? Were you being taught by someone? Were you having to fumble around and figure it yourself? Did you have a manual and a list of to-dos? Did you have to create it yourself? How old were you? Were you in an office? Were you working at home? Let's hear where this started, the auditing. And Kim says, I think it is my gift. I am wired. Yes, that way. But on the Bible, and I wanted that. Oh, you saw it in the Bible. And then you wanted that. Those kings were at peace and trusted God. So I would love for the very first memory in time. If you have to close your eyes, ladies, I have to close my eyes for this stuff. I have to. To go back and really think, because there's a picture that typically pops up. When you think about the sentence, I learned auditing companies. There's a picture. There's a time frame. Where you were reading the Bible and you saw it, was that the exact moment where you literally reading and you saw a king? Who was the king? What was the address in the Bible? What was the moment? Can you remember? And if you can't, that's okay. But all of these details are what curate that E and ESH. The value of taking the time to go back and explain this, to find this information, is what is going to allow you to share with people. Yeah, back when I was 5 years old, I used to live at home with my mom, and my dad wasn't anywhere to be found. And but I just remember me and my mom, we would be dancing around the kitchen, and there was one time where she picked me up and she swung me around, and I felt so free. And I remember thinking to myself, I wish my father was here. I wish my father was here. And that's why I heard a voice in my head that said, I am here. That might be a moment. Do you feel how there's a captivation where it's like, where were you? How old were you? Who were you with? What scene was there? Who wasn't there? And what was the moment that makes you think, oh yeah, that means I have a father, but it's God and I get to rely on him. Right? It might look something like that. So the fourth question from this, once you find the detailed example of the moment you remember, then we ask, give other detailed examples of when you've applied this. So what I mean by that is, the first question is, what was the moment you learned? What was the moment you remember learning this? When did you start identifying as having this skill? Secondly, since then, what are moments that pop in your mind that remind you that you've got this? What are moments where you've applied your ability to speak effectively and confidently to companies? What are some moments where you've prayed and you've asked for peace and rest and you were restored? What are some detailed moments? I recommend finding 2 to 3. The images should pop up very fast in your mind, probably thoughts you've dismissed in your past because they're just regular moments. Like I always have relied on God for peace and rest. So that's not important. I want you to grab those memories. I've always been able to communicate effectively. Like it's not that big of a deal. Grab some memories, grab them. Grab them. This is where we dismiss ourselves. This is me speaking from experience. Where I've dismissed myself has been where I just thought, well, yeah, of course I make friends. Like that's not a big deal. There are people desperate to being able to make friends. Oh yeah, of course I can work out, whatever. There are people desperate for that. If I dismiss it, I'm dismissing my gift that I can provide for someone else to want to step into action. So what are some memories that you have of when you've applied it? Tina says, it was actually a new skill that I had to learn after being laid off, and I was referred by a friend. I love that, Tina. So what I would love to hear is a detailed picture of everything that comes alongside that. Like describe the time, the year, the time, the date, like when you remember really feeling that, paint that off. I love that you paint that out. You said, I learned it after I was being laid off. Where were you in your home? Were you at a coffee shop? Those are the pictures we want to start grabbing onto. And then Kim, you said, yes, I remember. Amazing. So describing when you remembered acquiring or identifying with that skill set. And now a couple of moments since then that you would say, yeah, I communicate effectively. The more you brush it off, the more I guarantee that memory is important. When I started grabbing memories that I brushed off, I realized how much I had dismissed myself and my gifts. And so grab some of the lamest, simplest things in your opinion that you're like, yeah, I crushed it, but in that area, I always crush it. We want to grab the moments where you were confident. We want to grab the moments where it felt easy for you. That's the hope. Now, the last one is, what is the thing, or second to last, what is the thing you're creating now in your life as a result of this skill? What's the thing you're creating right now? If you communicate effectively for companies, what are you doing right now? What have you done within the last week? What are you doing in this season right now with this skill? Are you leading teams of 100? Are you, has the VP of the company reached out to you and asked you to do another project? Are you seeing the twinkle in people's eyes and they're more motivated and they're moving faster? What are you doing right now? Or what's happening as a result of this skill right now in your life? If you know that rest and peace is something that you've been confident in, how is it affecting how you're showing up right now? For me, it might be, normally I used to stress out and I used to have a very difficult time resting, and I had a hard time leaning on God to even ask for that rest. I used to be fearful of money, and I used to, earlier in my entrepreneurship journey, I used to be fearful of how it was going to affect how rest was going to affect my ability to make money. And then I found that rest and peace was the answer. Now I rest whenever I know I need to be doing more things. And I end up being way more productive as a result. What is the thing that you do now? I'm going to read it how I wrote it. What is the thing you're creating now in your life as a result of this skill? What is that thing? And then, that's okay. Kim, we're kind of speeding through. I'm going to have to hop off here in just a second because we have a call right now in the Women of Active and Attractive membership. So Kim, I'll see you there. But we're going to be a couple of minutes late. Ooh. So Tina says, when people are too busy to talk to me, and by the end of the conversation, I know. That's a skill. I love that. You're like, honey, sit down. We're going to talk and we're going to get to know each other. Kim says, I'm confident in my identity, my purpose, and destination. I am confident in my process and my trust in God. I rest in myself. So what are you creating as a result of resting in yourself? What is being created in your life because you're choosing that? That's the detail that I want to hear. The last question is, how does being able to do all of this? Okay, Okay. Let me rephrase this. How does your ability to apply this now in remembering where you were before you knew this, remembering where you came from, remembering when you didn't have this skill or it wasn't as predominant for you, how does being able to do all of this in remembering where you came from, how does that feel now? How does it feel knowing that you can communicate effectively and get people's kids' names when they're trying to move fast, and knowing that so many years ago you weren't able to do that? How does it feel knowing that you've maximized your rest and it's producing all of these great things in your life when before it might not have produced these great things? Remembering that in the past there was something else and it wasn't what you have now. How does it feel realizing that? How does it feel realizing that? I want to hear your answers, because this is your hope and this is your story. Ladies, in business, all we're doing is just pimping out hope. We're pimping out strength. We're pimping out experience. We're just putting it out there, just hustling, putting it out there for people to pick up and hopefully take for themselves. When you identify your hope and your story, what you're doing is you're allowing people to activate themselves. As leaders, our job is to not do things for other people, but we're here to influence and impact them. What do you impact them with? Your story, the pieces of your story. People might not identify with exactly what you have, but they relate to the fact that you struggled. People might not know exactly how to hold the strength, but they love the idea and the hope. Some people may not be able to relate to your story, but they really believe in that potential. When you walk through this, what you're doing is you're offering people the opportunity to pick things up for themselves. And if you don't open your mouth and you don't share your story in a way that is receptive to others, what happens is people only get part of the way there. So to fulfill on our duties as leaders, I see it is a skill. It is a skill. It is a gift to become a great storyteller. But you need to know your own story first, and you need to build a positive relationship with the story. So what I would love for you ladies to do is to take the information from these questions. And what I want for you to craft a story based on this information. Using the ESH model, what this means is that we are going to, I want to see you come together and build out the experience. I want you to talk about the experience. I want you to expand the experience. I want you to paint that picture, try it out. Then I want you to share the strength. I want you to get really powerful at sharing what was strong, what happened, what was that moment, what did it feel like, what helped you, what was working, what did you encounter that strengthened you. Paint the picture there. And the final piece is, have you recognized what has happened for you on the other side? What's the hope? What's the thing that has brought you into your next level? And what is this next level? What does it look like? The only thing in storytelling is to stretch this information out, to make it colorful, to make it have textures, to make it feel, to make it have senses: smell, sight, taste, touch, and listening. I had to think there for a second. If you can pull those out, I want you to practice. And inside of the group, I would love for you to feel comfortable typing your story out. Or if you want to be so bold, I would love for you to go live and for you to share your story with us. So ladies, with that being said, we're gonna reconvene all of this next Thursday and tie it all up. Nice pretty bow before we move on. I am so excited to have done this work with you. I just absolutely appreciate your time and your effort and your intentionality in being here. Ladies, this is how we are a work in progress, but my intention is to bring health to you in every aspect of your life. So if you can become a good storyteller, I know you're going to be healthier in your finances, in your ability to connect, in your ability to feel seen, and your ability to relate. And all of that matters for me as your health coach. So with that being said, ladies, I've got to go to this poor other call. I'm 8 minutes late and I don't like to be late, but I wanted to wrap things up tight with you. So with that being said, I love you, ladies. Here's to becoming more active and attractive, and I'll see you guys next Thursday. Can't wait to hear your stories.